All righty. Hi, everyone. This is Mateo with SEO Monolith. We are a digital marketing agency out of South Florida with offices in North Carolina as well. We do local visibility for businesses as well as lead generation. And we're very excited to have a special guest here today, Troy from Wise Truth. Uh, Thank you, Troy, for joining us today. I've been
hmm
looking for this for a while. So I'm going to have Troy introduce himself and telling us a little bit what he does.
Hello, everyone. My name is Troy. I'm also known as Wise Truth, as you can see in the corner. Um, so, what I do is I own a company by the name of the Ghost Project, which is a private innovations company where we believe an idea could change the fate of tomorrow for a better day. And the way that we're doing that is through our project by the name of Human. And Human is a multimedia platform where we encourage people to find truth in another person's perspective, bringing people together one culture at a time, forming a global community. We are across all platforms as of right now, and what we do focus on is one on one interviews. Uh, and then we are broken down into different segments, so we also focus on global group conversations that highlight important subject matters that affect us now or throughout the span of time.
Right. We've talked a number of times before. I was actually very much looking forward to this because you have such a unique platform. You get to talk to a lot of interesting people with a lot of interesting background. It's one of my go-to end of the day relaxing type of platforms because your interviews are in depth but also insightful. People have we always I think we're surrounded so much by the routine news and things that are just so spoon fed, and we kind of have lost touch a little bit with humanity to a certain extent. And a platform like yours has you can tell, at least in my opinion, and I'm sure you can testify to that, that there's no hidden agenda. There's no secret direction. Your questions are insightful and it really bring out the most interesting parts of people's experience
Mm.
in growing in either developing their business, their interest, or their parts of what makes them who they are. So I think I've actually seen all your videos, and I found myself actually watching them more than once. And you have quite a bit of a vast collection and diversity in your audience and in the people that you interview. All of them, like I mentioned before, tend to be from different walks of life with different interests, with different goals. Is there a commonality that you find that somewhat resonates in everyone? Granted, we're all different. We all have different goals, aspirations, and we've been brought up in different cultures. But is there
Mm.
that one thing that you say, you know what, maybe it's not so obvious, but through my years of doing this, I find that there's something that is in all of us. I know it's a pretty loaded question, very philosophical, but
Hmm.
is there that a commonality that brings us together?
Well, I think first and foremost, the commonality for all jokes intended, and pun here, right, would be that we're human, right? At the end of the day, I think that's a commonality that we all do share. But I think outside of that commonality, one thing that we should keep in mind is everybody has like an ebb and flow, which is one thing I found in life. There's a almost like a rise and fall, but maybe the fall might not be so hard, right? But people have the commonality that I've noticed is that people have went through things that developed them into who they are now,
Mhm.
right? Some people have learned from their successes, equally their failures, right? Across the
Right.
board when it came to developing human.
Mhm.
One thing I do notice too is we have kind of a record of interviewing people who have overcame some hurdles and established themselves. Not necessarily as a full-on business, it doesn't always have to be like that, but it's more so maybe they're successful in what they were hoping to accomplish in life. Maybe they're successful in terms of just having maybe a solopreneurship going on where they have like their own private projects and businesses that they're indulging in. Or maybe they're a full-on entrepreneur, and some people are life coaches, but they all have something they that anchors them, I would say, a passion that drives them, right? There is a similarity that I've noticed. Now, I did recently speak to people about interviewing those who also may not have succeeded the way they want to, because that's also a reality that we deal with as humans, and I think it's important to cover that aspect also, you know. There-
Is there when you bring up a certain a very interesting thing that you said, that oftentimes success stems from perhaps a failure. Do you find
Mhm.
that sometimes that failure is the catalyst for them to bounce back up stronger than ever because they've learned from their mistake, they hit rock bottom, so to speak, and now they have the mindset to say, you know what, I went down that path. It was the wrong path for me. Now I know better. I've grown. You find that sometimes that is the case in the people that you've talked with?
Yes, I do find that to be the case. I do agree, but I think there's something that, I really want to say and just implement is sometimes that also depends on how the person handles that. I
Yes.
did have one interview where the man did speak about a mistake that cost him, and it cost him so much that he never truly bounced back from it.
Wow.
Right? He was successful in other avenues of his life,
Mm.
but in that specific time frame, financially, it totally put him back. I think at the time it had put him back so far that he had to live back with his parents, and he's, and of course, within society, he'll be judged, right? But he was upwards of the age of probably his late 30s, early 40s, maybe I think even mid 40s. I wasn't
Mm.
too sure as to his age at the time when I
Right.
interviewed him, but this was from a recession, a housing recession, where he
Yeah.
had made an investment in a building, and instead of a house, and this is what he said, almost word verbatim. And that recession came to, technically, uh, I guess we would say bite him in this,
Yep.
um, and
Yep. Yep.
from that from that being the case, because it was such a heavy project to sustain as to upholding a building in that form of real estate, and
Yep.
backfired on him pretty harsh and cost him a lot.
Yep.
So I think it's all depending upon the individual, whether they'll sink or swim.
Right.
I am not a stranger to my own failures from time to time. So it's like, what am I going to do? Am I going to let this totally take me out? Am I going to take my lessons that I
Right.
need to learn from it and then move forward from it?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So,
Being a journalist, being that you interact with a lot of people on a very unique platform, obviously getting your message out. In fact, that's what our stream is about today, is really getting your message out.
mhm.
Um, what are some of the obstacles? I mean, there's some great tools out there. Now it seems that now more than ever it's a double-edged sword as far as getting the message out, because there's just it's easier to do, I should say, but there's also, because of it, there's also so many people doing it. So it's good and bad. What is the what is the secret sauce, so to speak, for wise truth, for human? How do you approach the whole concept of creating content and then disseminating it so that your message gets out to the writer? I mean, it's a pretty intense question. I mean, this is something that we deal with on a daily basis as far as really helping our clients get their message out. But I'm curious to
Mhm.
find out from your perspective, what are some of the challenges and what are some of the benefits as well?
Well, I want to start off by saying that at the end of the day, I'm human too, right? Like, so I when it comes to social media, I feel like I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into my personal qualms, I think,
Yeah.
and challenges. I'll start off
Sure.
there. Um, I used to be extremely engaged in social media, and then after a while, I wanted to take a step back. I understood the psychological effects that it was having on me in terms
Mm,
of having to post every day,
yeah.
and my existence being tied into an application when I exist outside of that app. Right, just that feeling, fighting that feeling. I think when it comes to social media, like you said, it is a double-edged sword because, for one, it's difficult to navigate social media with a platform that honestly has never really been seen before, and it's the way it's set up and put together, right? So it's very unique. And how do you, that's why I say that I specialize in innovation, because now it's like, how do you introduce that into a market? What does that market look like? It was only as of recent that I found out there's a difference between demographic and psychographic.
Mm,
And the reason why I can't establish a demographic is because I have to look for a psychographic, right?
right.
A certain group, the way a certain group of people think, excuse me,
Right.
which is different from their ethnicity, their race, their height, what
Very
they
much
look
so.
like.
Yeah.
So moving forward, I think one of the challenges we face is not feeding into what's trending,
Mm,
right? We have to literally, it's almost like swimming against the tide when it comes to the algorithm because we have raw, authentic content to deliver to people, but then also not losing ourselves to the numbers, right? Doing things like starting to shift a certain way just because we want more numbers
yep.
when the numbers can still come naturally through organic growth.
Yep.
But it's tough, right? Because the way social media is set up, I believe, is now it's a lot of pay to play,
It is.
going on. So you're in a sphere of a lot of different people, right?
Right.
Who are paying to play, other
Yeah.
people who have entertaining content,
Right.
that your content is getting like eclipsed almost.
Right.
Um, so luckily, we have people who, with building enough momentum, are becoming dedicated to human and even introducing it to other people, right?
Right.
Like this morning, I received the email from a lady in a different state who wants me to bring on someone else for an interview. So it seems like word of mouth still reigns, in my opinion, with it intertwined into social media. In my opinion, still reigns supreme. It might not work um, to the level that you would want it to have things go quicker or build
Right.
faster, but over time it will solidify, right, itself. So
Definitely.
that,
I mean, the word of mouth is the golden ticket. I mean, you know, and like you said, if you're able to throw that into the mix of creating a hybrid between the what kind of everyone else is doing, but then you kind of put in the mix your word of mouth and how your business is generating more interest. That's like the perfect recipe. One thing that we always face and how we advise our clients when it comes to getting their message out, especially in a social media platform, is trying to find that sweet spot between quality and quantity, and
Mhm.
that's always extremely difficult. There are people out there that will tell you, well, if you want to, get on the good side of the algorithm, you got to post seven, posts a day between 10 a.m. and you can go crazy, right?
Mhm.
And one thing that we know, especially when it comes it's slightly off the subject because now we're talking more about SEO. There's you got to something you have to be careful about is called, is duplicate content. A lot of people will just regurgitate the same clips over and over again, and this is something that not only takes away from getting your content more visible, but it also takes away from your brand, right? So it's about keeping content fresh. It's about trying to find that middle ground between quantity and quality. Doesn't mean that you have to create a Hollywood production and and some people do. It's incredible what some people do in their basement.
Amazing.
You've seen those
Oh
videos.
man.
It's like incredible, right? But the question
Hmm.
is, how much money, how much time did they spend where they could have spent that time and money somewhere else in helping their business grow? So I'm not a proponent for the extremes. I'm not a proponent for finding middle ground. One thing about quality, as much as everybody loves quality, remember that quality is a subjective factor. Not everyone interprets quality the same way. What one person may think is incredible quality, the other person may not. So it becomes extremely subjective, and now more than ever, everybody's so opinionated, and you think you're trying to hit that audience, and you're missing the mark tremendously. In regards to quantity, not go crazy with quantity, but remember the quantity is a number, and being that it's a metric that can be analyzed. So there's good and bad from both parts, and obviously it's common sense to try to find that middle ground. At least that's what we provide to our clients, is providing a good balance between quantity and quality. And then if anything, the words of wisdom for us is definitely be the voice of authority. That's what we always tell our clients: do not go out, do not go and try to sell, hey, look at me, constantly pitching, but actually say, hey, look at me, I'm going to give you some good advice over and over again. And eventually, since you're not here to try to sell me something, I'm going to come back to you because you've been offering the community good advice. And this is what we see working all the time. So utilizing that channel for becoming the voice of authority, which is pretty interesting. Now you have a great website, which like I said, it's designed very well. All your videos are there. How much of your day is spent like maintaining your social media image, your brand? Is this something that is it can be extremely time consuming, right?
Well, I yes, I will. I want to make sure that I approach this the right way, but I also have something to say about the previous subject
Yes.
too. Before diving back in, before catching up with what you just presented now. Um, I also think it's a struggle sometimes because of how much con. Well, for me, I spend a lot of time on social media. How much I'm tied to with the point that I want to say with what you just stated. So I spend a lot of time with contacting people, right?
Hmm.
And I think through social media, forging that real connection with people is important. How do you make that happen, even if it's just a business, right?
Right.
How do you keep in contact with people, keep nurturing the relationships, and keep
Right.
having them grow, right? Is important, especially for human. Now, when it comes to human, also another thing that I want to say was I feel like our social media presence is extremely important to visibility, right? So we're
Hmm.
kind of spread across different platforms. I tend to use automation from time to time to post across different platforms,
Hmm.
right? Automation
Hmm.
has its, I think it has its gifts, but it also comes with
Hmm.
its curses too. It's hard to interact in real time with
Hmm.
automation, but you can't be everywhere at the same time. How much time do I spend with social media almost per day? Uh, Sometimes it's because I live different, right? I go with the flow. That's why maybe, to be quite honest, we're not growing as fast. I'm not on social media every day. I'm human at the end of the day, and I like to live my life also.
Absolutely.
I think that I've watched how social media can take people's life by storm and captivate and almost hold them captive in their hours and hours. Just for a health fact for everyone to know, it's not good for you to sit down for extremely long periods of
No.
time, right? That's
No.
that's just putting that out there.
Yep.
For those who are, in the field of managing social media, it's
Yep.
always good to go out, take a break, look at the sky,
Yeah. Of
refresh your
course.
mind.
Of course.
But to answer your question, if on an average day, because I do work overnight, so I have the beauty of having that downtime at my job and being able to sit down and plan out what I want to kind of
Mhm.
post out that next day. So that
Mhm.
may be 2 to 3 hours, maybe 4 hours. And then when I come home, wake up, I have to answer back messages, things of that nature. I kind of focus on that when I wake up because I know it's going to be later in the day. due to the fact that I work overnight and I have
Right.
to rest during the day,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
So when it comes to managing social media, I try to pre-plan what's going on, possibly for the next day. I've been working on batch creation, which
Mm-hmm.
is pre-planning what I'm going to do for
Mm-hmm.
that week.
Mm-hmm.
The only difficulty about the week six scenario is when it comes to Instagram, because we host our interviews practically every Wednesday on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to pre-plan that, right? Because you got to do
Right.
the live video, you got to put out the interview, then
Yeah.
you got to take a clip from that interview to promote it, right?
Right.
So just trying to figure out, I think, a flow that works efficiently. And because I am 50-50 about using AI as
Mm-hmm.
to help me at the back end, where
Mm-hmm.
I practically don't, because human,
Mm-hmm.
the name of our platform, I want to lean more towards sticking with
Sure.
humans that do
Sure.
the work,
Sure.
right, for our platform.
Yeah, I think that, and you bring up a very good point. This is something that we see with our clients as well, and it's almost become they become slave to the whole social media aspect, and it's something that I think that for some businesses, and I know that a lot of people are going to be hearing this, and they're going to say, "Well, what the heck is Mateo talking about?" But there are some businesses that don't necessarily have to prioritize social media. I mean, it's almost
They don't.
become. I have clients that are, you know, industrial manufacturers of parts, and that will never be seen by the eyes of a consumer, and they tell me, "Well, I need to be on social media," and I'm like, why? I mean, it's something that it's been ingrained in our minds that every company has to have a social media presence. Now, having said that, sure,
Mm,
if your business can benefit from it, it's great. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of ways to simplify the process depending on how much of a personal touch you want in social media. Like you said,
mhm,
a platform like yourself benefits from having that human touch, benefits from having your input in the way that interviews are placed and scheduled. For other
mhm,
companies, it can certainly be a benefit, but obviously, I don't feel that every single company out there needs to have the most amazing social media presence. I mean, it's just that we've been ingrained and taught that no matter what type of business you're in, you need to have an incredible social media campaign. Granted, it's
mm,
important.
mhm,
We do great social media marketing, but social media marketing is about engagement, right?
mhm.
If you post day in day out and you get no engagement, no traction, no comments, no growth, then you're doing something wrong, right? Because otherwise, it takes away from your business. You've, as you mentioned, become so attached to it, and so you start having a phobia around it. That I gotta post, I gotta do this, I gotta take picture of that, and you're not running your business. Go ahead.
I would like to tell you a story,
Yes.
actually. So about last year, I took a break from social media for 6 months. I was going through some personal things at the time in life, but nonetheless, what I felt was a psychological thing going on with my brain where I felt like I was becoming so tied into like trying to post on social media and oh, I got to keep up with what's going on and
Right.
FOMO, fear of missing out, and
Right.
all these things, right, that were taking place that I felt my existence was getting tied into the application itself. Like
Right.
if I don't post, then I don't exist. I got over that now, right? Like now I can go without posting for a while. I'm like, okay, it's life. Like I'm living my life. I still have to take care. I work a full-time job.
Yep.
I have to sleep. I just design everything that you see for it, the website, everything like that. I do all the work across the board, right?
Hmm.
So when I decide to take these breaks, I'm okay with it. But
Right.
what happens that people struggle with, and I really want to give this message with them because a message out to them because I don't think that they're aware of what's going on.
Right.
So one is social media has definitely put a stamp in our life, right?
Hmm.
So much so, like you said before, that people feel the urge. But let me let you know something now. If you don't need it, please, for the sake of your own, mental health based upon my experience. Don't use it. I'm not telling you it's not a great tool,
Right.
but don't use it, right? If you don't need it.
Yeah.
Second, moving forward is, and I want to make sure that I state this correct. Second is when it comes to the use of social media, have a purpose. Sometimes have a purpose that's deeper than yourself. Because there's going to get times where you get tired, where you're scheduling things, where you might not be seeing the results, and you have to have that deeper purpose within yourself. You can't just post and not have kind of like an end goal. But
Yeah.
also, another thing is be aware of what your ROI is
Yes.
on social media. Be
Yes.
aware of that. Are you doing this for clients? Are you doing this for engagement? Are you doing this for unity?
Yeah.
Be aware of these things because that's very important, especially with me for human. It's a multitude of things, but the most prominent thing is people engaging and learning from the content, right? Taking things home with them that they can be like, oh, I know that I left their
Yeah.
platform with value.
Yeah.
And not only did I leave with value, I met other people who are also human that I can follow and I can reach out to because of the way that we've structured that group
Yeah.
conversation aspect that I brought up earlier.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
that definitely you've touched upon something very, very important, is that don't post for the sake of posting. There has to have a meaning behind it. I think it's that follow the leader mentality. Well, because everyone else is doing it, I got to do it as well. But is it benefiting your business? Is it helping your business grow? And just like Google Analytics, all these platforms have analytics. Yeah, people just need to take the time to look at it. Or at that point, you get to the point where you say, you know what, social media is important for my business. I need it. I don't have the time to run it, but it's giving me results. I want to take it to the next level. Let's go and pass it on to a professional. And that's where we come in. Other agencies come in. But social media has to have a correlation between what that person and or that brand or that company is doing, because there are some instances where there is really no benefit for companies. And like I said, I may get a lot of heads going no, but it is the truth. I mean, that time and money could be spent in other marketing initiatives. And you say, well, it can't hurt. True, it cannot hurt, but the growth cycle of a company is based a lot on how the brand is interpreted, and the type of, like you mentioned before, demographics. You want to have everything aligned as best as possible, especially when you're in that growth cycle where you have to really have all your ducks in a row. When you're a bigger company, yeah, a big mistake can cost a lot of money, but you can bounce back pretty quickly. You can adjust. When you're growing, you really have to make good decisions in order to grow.
I forgot to say one thing prior, actually, because it was on the tip of my tongue, and
Mm.
it keeps like evading me right now. But I really want to make sure that I'm able to get this out.
Yeah,
Um, it just evaded me again. It was right there. It's
it's an evading topic.
it's an
It's a
evading.
slippery sucker.
Do not. That was a good one. Do not. I want to tell people. Uh, for social media. Oh, do not be afraid. Here we go. Do not be afraid to be transparent. I recently
Hmm.
had a campfire session, which is part
Hmm.
of the human platform called Lack of Transparency,
Hmm.
Isolation Through Social Media,
Hmm.
right? And one of the things that we spoke about during that campfire session was the understanding of why people feel the need to not be transparent. What does vulnerability look like, right? That's one of it's a very dynamic topic. All our topics are dynamic,
Yeah.
but that was one part of the topic that I feel like is important. And while I'm here, I just wanted to stress that to people. Like, I am transparent to a degree, of course, right? I know that people don't want to hear like when I wake up, like what I was experiencing in the morning. I don't think
Right.
that's necessary. But to hear the struggle side too, I
Yeah.
mean, of course, my platform allows me to do that, right? Because it's the human essence. I have to, you know, I am in a position where I can be human, literally.
Right.
I've
Right.
went through this, I've done this, I'm just like you. There goes the relatability, right? And
Yeah.
it's honest, right? Like I'm
It is.
still not necessarily where I might want to be in life, but that
Yeah.
transparency aspect
It's
is
funny you should say
is
that
really important.
because the stream that we did just before yours, we actually had a whole segment on transparency. I'm not kidding. How
Mm,
we actually approach our clients. In fact, we have a few clips of it on TikTok, which I invite people to look at. When we talk to a prospective client, for us, transparency is our number one priority. Unfortunately, you know, marketing has gotten, I think, lately a bad rap,
mm,
just because it's something that I'm very adamant about in the sense that it's an industry that has no barriers to entry. A lawyer has to get pass the bar. A doctor has to get his or her medical license.
mm,
Marketing person, hey, I watched a couple of YouTube videos. Now I'm a marketing expert, right? So unfortunately, we get our fair share of people contacting us, companies contacting us, and they did not do their due diligence. They did not research an agency enough, and they have gotten burnt. And sometimes, a company can, like I said, can make a mistake and recoup. A solopreneur or a startup that makes a mistake like that, I have had calls of people, trying to start their business, single mothers or young individuals that put aside some of their money and then they got burned because they bought a $5,000 course that was guaranteeing them $1 million within 60 days. And there's a lot of people like that,
mm,
unfortunately. And I'm one of those big proponents of telling customers, if you don't see it clear when you're talking to an agency or a so-called marketing person, run, don't walk. You need to be able to have all your questions answered and really
mm,
find out what is their process, what experience do they have,
mhm,
and this is something that I'm a big proponent of. And again, if it's not me and you want to go with another, that's fine. Just make sure that they are transparent as possible. We are all about transparency. And we're all about also not having any kind of long-term contracts. A lot of these agencies, just like a public service announcement here, a lot of agencies lock you in into great pricing, but then you're stuck with them for a year, and what happens if you're not happy with their knowledge and their experience of what they're doing? Then you're stuck. So all our services are always month to month, and we have like a 92% retention rate. We have customers that have been with us since inception, since 5, 6 years ago. They're continually month to month, always with us. And it's
mm,
something that goes to the fact that if I am telling you that we can do something, we can do something. I'd rather be transparent and lose a potential client than to give them a underperformance and promising things that cannot happen. And unfortunately, there's a lot of
mm,
agencies out there that are just, yes, that's their keyword. Yes, we can do that. Yes, yes, we can get you that. Yes, right. And it's hurting, I think, our agencies that have put in their due diligence, that have worked very hard, that have the
mm,
experience. All our top account executives either have MBAs or have been business owners themselves for 20 years. That's kind of like our criterias. Because at the end of the day, is how can you really give good, solid advice to a business owner if you haven't been a business owner yourself? How can you put yourself in those shoes? You talk obviously with a lot of people, and you also, as a journalist, have to have empathy, right? You have to understand where they're coming from in order to get the right questions. And we approach it the same way. We have to be able to have common ground. I have to know
mm.
the struggles that a business owner is going through so I can give them the best possible advice. Because otherwise, AI, right? You put in, hey, give me a business model for an ice cream shop, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Oh, it's
So,
gonna give it to you.
right, it's going to give it to
For sure.
you, but it doesn't have the experience. It doesn't have the difficulties that it went through. We don't live in a vacuum. There's always issues. I don't offer
Very true.
guarantees. Anytime that
Mm,
someone offers a guarantee, be extremely wary, because there really can be no guarantee, because our economy and our system, it has just too many variables, and a company
mm,
doesn't sit in a vacuum, right? You don't have constants, right? There's always moving variables day in, day out. Therefore, you can have guesstimates, you can have projections, but in our eyes, there's really no guarantees, as just as there's no guarantees in life. So
mm.
that's where my 2 cents are. Um, some final words for our audience that you want to throw their way?
Well, yes. For one, I want people to consider once again the transparency aspect of marketing and what does a human connection look like within the marketing that you're doing on social media. Like I said, I'm pretty fortunate when it comes to that aspect because that's what the platform is catering to, right? I wanted to also say something about finding your demographic because I
Right.
think this is very interesting. I do feel like it's important, but every so often there are, if you're a business that you feel like you're extremely unique, like myself,
Hmm.
right? Like I know that what I've done, I haven't seen it done
Right.
before, based upon my research,
Sure.
right, from the ground up.
Sure.
Um, you know, so with that being said, you have to cast a different net when it comes to marketing, right? And maybe don't be afraid to be just totally different in how you approach that. Maybe your demographic is going to take a while to be structured. Maybe you might need to do a psychographic, which is built off the way that people think,
Yep.
and how they, what makes them tick mentally. I think that it's very important to stress that because a lot of people get stumped at that point. Don't stress out about it. But when I say stress it, it means like I think it's something that a lot of people highlight and at the same time get stuck at because I know I have experience being stuck
Yep.
there too myself.
Yep.
But it's okay to shoot in the wind. I'm here to
It
let
is.
you know.
It is.
It's
In fact,
okay.
yeah, I mean, one of the things actually that when we approach certain marketing initiatives, whether it's Facebook ads or any kind of ads or anything that we can perform split tests. We don't come
Mhm.
in, thinking, even though, we sometimes work with very large corporations, and they tell us, "Hey, Mateo, this is our demographics. It's been like demographics. This is who we have to." I said, "Well, when was the last time you really tested this audience?" So oftentimes the first stage
Mm,
that we do is actually we do split tests, where, trying different audiences. Maybe you have a core audience, but
mhm.
maybe you're ignoring other parts of that audience, that maybe it's an allied audience, maybe it's something that's right on the cuffs of entering into another type of market. So one of the first things that we do is actually, like I said, do a lot of split testing, and really try to get an understanding. And I think what you also mentioned about the psychology aspect of how actually, not the demographics, but the way that people think,
The
which is closer.
sociographic.
The sociographics is very
Graphic.
related to consumer behavior, right? Consumer behavior is
Excuse me.
something that
Psychographic. Sorry about that. Excuse me.
psychographics.
Yeah, psychographic. Excuse me. There you go. Continue.
It's extremely, yeah. It's on the same field, so to speak, as consumer behavior, right? The
Mhm.
way that a person thinks about purchasing a product or purchasing a service. And I think that's a fantastic point that you bring up. It's something that so many people are so stuck on demographics. But at the end of the
Mhm.
day, the demographics are important. They'll give you a macro look at your audience, but really understanding what is their line of thinking, what is their thought process. In fact, there is technology out there that will change a website based on the visitor. They know that a certain visitor
Mm,
behaves in a certain way when browsing a website. Next time they go on, the site is going to look different and it's going to be customized for them. So they're going to show products that they are more interested in. Fact, Amazon is doing it, right? Every time you go back to Amazon, it's showing you things that you've looked at that you have interested in, right? This is
mm,
part of that consumer behavior where, yes, the analytics are important, demographics are important, but it's that consumer behavior, the way that a customer interacts with your brand. And then it's also tied into social media with that engagement aspect. Are people engaging with your posts? And there's so many moving parts.
yeah.
And, it's a science. It's a science that is mixed with a little bit of creativity. And that's what
Hmm.
we love to do. We look at the numbers, we look at numbers with a grain of salt because numbers, even though are not subjective, numbers are numbers, but you have to understand where the numbers are coming from.
I
So
want to say something.
yes.
Um, I think that it's important for people to do that too on the social media aspect. Do not, and I repeat, do not get lost in numbers.
Yep.
I've watched, it took me a long time to kind of get this through my mind, but I've watched different forms of engagement and did some research, and people were using kind of bots and buying their followers. And so then when you started to like look for certain cues and points, you're like, oh, this is not adding up. So basically what I'm telling you guys is don't get lost in numbers. Dive into the connection aspect.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
very important that you do that because the connection will then get you where you want to go. Because I see
Exactly.
so many people get discouraged from the indirect form of comparison that happens on a subconscious level on social media.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, it really just takes maybe one or two people to help you reach the goal that you're trying to reach, right? It's not always a numbers game. It's not just about looking at numbers and making it into a science. Enjoy the social media aspect of it, getting your message out. Don't become a mad scientist and look at the numbers and crunch all those numbers. Unless you're in that space, which, if you're a large, B2C type of, cosmetic company and all that, then yeah, you have to crunch the numbers. You have to look at it. But your social engagement has to align with your brand, with what
Hmm.
you're pushing for. Yes, you have millions of dollars of social media budget. Yeah, you have to crunch the numbers. If you're in a
Hmm.
more personal and you want to get your grassroots message out, forget the numbers. Create good content, make it visible,
Indeed.
engage. That's what it comes down to.
When it comes to getting your message out, just like what we're speaking about now,
Yep.
make sure that it's like authentic, right? Like try your best to be as authentic as you can be when it
Yep.
comes to getting your message out, is my advice to people.
Oh, that's a great
And
advice.
also, yeah, no problem. But because I feel like what happens is sometimes marketing, especially nowadays, could become very gimmicky,
Hmm.
right? People kind of feels like you're going through a gimmick. You're like, "Oh,
Of
I've heard
course.
this pitch before, right?
Of course.
That's why I feel like reverting back to human, it's very refreshing when people run into human because for one, you could feel like it's not a gimmick.
Yep.
The backstory behind it is very interesting, right?
Yep.
But on top of that, it's the purpose. I have the pitch down packed, like what I said in the beginning, but it's not gimmicky, right?
Right.
It's straightforward. Like this is who we are. This is what we do. And if you would like to interact with us, this is how you can do it,
Yep. Yep.
right? So just understanding that I think is very important of getting your message out. Oh, and also do not, this is extremely important, do not be led astray
Yep.
because it doesn't seem like your message is where your message is getting the attention that you want it to get
Yep.
in the beginning or even through several years. Listen, guys, it takes 10 to 15 years for a company that we see nowadays to really get its feet
It's true.
rooted the proper way, right? So
It's true.
when it comes to getting your message out, please stay consistent in the message that you feel like works for you and
Correct.
stay persistent with that instead of doing what's trending or altering
Exactly. Exactly.
what you have to deliver to the people just because it seems like it fits the times.
I invite everyone to check out human.world, spelled HVMAN.world, and great stuff in there. Like I said, I always and you're always uploading some great content, and I always look forward to some new content talking about bringing, getting your message out.
Yes,
Go
indeed.
over there, check it out. There's a lot of great interviews, really fun and very unique stories. I also invite everyone to visit our website, sumonolith.com, for any of your digital marketing needs. So thanks everyone for stopping by. You can also scan the QR code you see for a free consultation. And thanks again, everyone, for joining. And we hope to see you soon. I think we got lost you for a
Oh,
second. Now you're here.
yeah.
You're everywhere.
I mean, I'm everywhere. I apologize for that. My computer decided to
No
have a small
worries.
hiccup. But for
The
all of those who are,
the more the better. We got two Troys now.
yeah. Real quick before you end, I
Sure.
want to say thank you for everyone who tuned in live. Thank you for having me, Mateo. I
It's
appreciate
my
you
pleasure.
100%. For anybody who's looking for us online, like he said before, or excuse me, over this direction, the mirror thing has me a little confused. But you can find us at www.hvman.world, which is human.world. It is the same literally across all platforms, TikTok, YouTube, across all platforms. We've been able to kind of secure that tag to make it easy for you to find us. Um,
Fantastic.
Once again, please everybody keep in mind, last but not least, like especially when it comes to the marketing thing, taking breaks and having compassion for yourself. Just remember that you are human at the end of the day, and that it is important for you to recognize that you are not a machine and you cannot work 24/7. It feels like, I know sometimes for some people, it feels like you're competing against these big corporations with these big, gigantic budgets. Because I felt that way myself. Um,
Absolutely. Don't get distracted. Don't feel like you're fighting the battle alone. Choose your battles wisely, and when you need help, get help. Right. But thanks again, Troy, so much.
you're welcome.
Thank you so much for your time. Some great insights, and looking forward to more content on human.world. Thanks again, Troy, so much for your time. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yes.